So that's a little bit about our family and a little bit about why Mary Taylor chose me. We had also been very involved, even though we were at P&G, in conservative efforts and causes. We've held 2 different fundraisers in our home over the years for Jim Jordan. I walked Warren Davidson through the plant out in Hamilton before he was elected, helped him raise some money as well. And we have been involved on a national basis at the U.S. Senate level. Not in Ohio, but elsewhere where we felt we could make a difference. And so I look at this as I'm still in the same fight, I just changed seats. And I changed seats because Mary Taylor is the only conservative choice we have to be governor of Ohio in 2018. And when I looked at that, and I looked at her record, and I said, Mary Taylor, when she was in the State House, in her first time in the State House, she co-sponsored a bill to ban abortion, no exceptions in Ohio. She led the effort for concealed carry that is the law of the land in Ohio. And she stood as an accountant on the Finance Committee in the House, and she voted against her Republican Governor Bob Taft's tax increase. And for doing so, she was kicked off the Finance Committee by the Republicans. Okay? And when my wife and I look for candidates that we want to support, we look for conservative champions. We look for folks that don't care if their political career might get hurt because they're not there for their career, they're there for the principles that we care about that they ran on. Well, that was Mary Taylor. Anyone who's willing to get kicked off the Finance Committee as a freshman in the House and stand up against a Republican governor, that says a lot to me. Okay? It says a lot. So, I said, all right, Mary, that checks out. Wow, the job you did as auditor, 2006 to 2010, she's the only one who called out Ted Strickland's massive $8 billion deficit coming our way in Ohio. Okay? Said, but Mary, I gotta tell you, I'm a little skeptical. You are John Kasich's LG. You gotta help me on this. Okay? So Mary looked at me and she said, quite frankly, John Kasich left Mary Taylor. John Kasich left conservatives. John Kasich left the Republican Party. Mary Taylor never did. Mary Taylor stood up as head of the insurance department. So when she was elected LG in 2010, she took over the insurance department. Why? Because she was the tip of the spear against Obamacare coming down in our state. And she used her powers as an accountant and her actuarial knowledge to show that Obamacare would implode in 4 to 5 years, and we should not build out a statewide exchange. Saved the people of Ohio over $40 million, and took her quite some time to convince the governor and his staff not to do it, but she did it. She won that battle. But because she won that battle, she slowly started finding herself more and more on the outside. Okay? So she lost the fight internally on the Medicaid expansion. At which point I said, well, Mary, you know, why weren't you more vocal? And she said, you're a constitutional conservative just like me. What does the Ohio Constitution say the Lieutenant Governor does? Anyone? Heartbeat away. That's it. No statutory authority, no constitutional authority. No relationship with the state Senate, no relationship with the state House. Not even a budget. I said, wow, you're trying to convince me to run for lieutenant governor. Very good job. And at that point, my wife and I kind of smiled and said, okay, Mary, we got it, right? You're tied to governor, and you chose to fight on the inside with conservative arguments and try and win the day whenever you could. Because that's the only role you had to play. That's the only role you could play from a constitutional standpoint in Ohio. And when John Kasich decided to hold his protest rally in July of 2016, where was Mary? Mary was at the Republican National Convention welcoming delegates to our state when our governor was down the street. So I might have to shout because this mic doesn't seem to be working very well, but I did want you to understand that you have a very clear choice. And I mentioned Ronald Reagan earlier. Ronald Reagan said, it is up to us as Republicans to hold up banners of bold primary colors. What did he mean by that? It means that when you have a choice, you vote for folks that have been clear, consistent, conservative champions. Well, you have 2 tickets running for governor on the Republican slate on May 8th. Only one of those tickets never earned an F from the NRA. That would be Mary Taylor and Nathan Estruth. Mary Taylor has had an A from the NRA in all 15 years that she's been in public office. Okay? There's only one ticket that never voted to spend taxpayer dollars on tuition for illegal immigrants. Yes, Mike DeWine did that. That ticket would be Mary Taylor and Nathan Estruth. There's only one ticket that never voted for amnesty. That would be Mary Taylor and Nathan Estruth. There's only one ticket that didn't lead the Gang of 14 to undermine the 10 most conservative judges that George W. Bush nominated. Yes, Mike DeWine did that. That would be Mary Taylor and Nathan Estruth. And by the way, when someone asked Mike DeWine about that in Butler County at the Republican endorsement, which he thought he had and he didn't get, he said that was a conservative move. That lieutenant governor candidate over there has got it wrong. If you want the tape, we have it. He said that was a conservative move. I wasn't able to answer him, but by the way, that conservative move was with the Democrats, John McCain, Olympia Snowe, all those conservatives you know in the U.S. Senate. And by the way, if you haven't heard the news, that's one of the many reasons why U.S. Senator Mike Lee endorsed Mary Taylor and Nathan Estruth today. If you don't know U.S. Senator Mike Lee, take a look, but he founded and is the leader of the Tea Party caucus in the U.S. Senate. He's got a 100% rating from the American Conservative Union. He's got a 100% rating from the NRA. Okay? Mike Lee says there's a choice to be made in this race. There's only one conservative ticket, and that's Mary Taylor and Nathan Estruth. Even if you want to let Mike DeWine off the hook on the Gang of 14, anyone heard of Merrick Garland? Merrick Garland. Who's Merrick Garland? Merrick Garland was nominated by Barack Obama to the U.S. Supreme Court. Right? Remember? Right? To backfill for Justice Scalia. Okay? And Mitch McConnell and the Republicans held firm. Thank you, Republicans in the Senate. They did hold firm on that. Okay? And we have Neil Gorsuch to thank for that. You know who voted for Merrick Garland before Barack Obama did? Your Ohio Senator Mike DeWine. Even when Mitch McConnell and John McCain voted no, DeWine voted yes when Bill Clinton nominated Merrick Garland. You know who voted for Sonia Sotomayor before Barack Obama appointed her to the U.S. Supreme Court? Your U.S. Senator Mike DeWine. That's who voted for Sonia Sotomayor. Now, who's the conservative in this race? Mike DeWine is asking for a do-over to undo all the damage that he did as a U.S. Senator. And the answer needs to be no on May 8th. The answer needs to be that there is a ticket that have been consistent conservatives, Mary Taylor and Nathan Estruth, our entire lives. And we will take this fight with your help all the way to November. By the way, I mentioned 2006 when Mary Taylor was state auditor. That's when Mike DeWine lost his U.S. Senate seat because of his horrible record. Can I have 1 extra minute? My mic has not been helping me here.
Yeah, maybe this one. We put a battery in there. Did you, Jim?
I'll keep going. That's all right. So, 2006, Mike DeWine lost the U.S. Senate seat here in Ohio. And by the way, by doing so, he gave the U.S. Senate to Harry Reid. By 1 vote, the gavel moved to Harry Reid in 2006. Remember that, folks. If Mike DeWine had not been since a liberal in the U.S. Senate, he wouldn't have handed the U.S. Senate over, the entire U.S. Senate, to Harry Reid. All the Republicans on the ballot that year lost, every single one. Ken Blackwell lost the governor's race. Mike DeWine lost the U.S. Senate race. All the way down. But all the way down at the bottom, running for state auditor for the very first time, Mary Taylor won. She was the only Republican to win statewide in 2006. And by the way, all the way down ballot, running for state auditor, she beat Mike DeWine. She outpolled Mike DeWine by 175,000 votes. Why is that? Because Mary Taylor's made tough. She's a conservative. Conservatives will show up for Mary Taylor in November. They will not show up for Mike DeWine. If you want to nominate a candidate on May 8th who will win in November. Mary Taylor and Nathan Estruth are your candidates. Thank you very much. Please fire away with questions. Is that all right?
Okay.
Or do we have time? Oh,
Everybody, we would like for you to ask any question you want, but in one breath, and we would also appreciate it if the candidates would try to spend a little less time answering the questions so we can get more questions answered. If we don't have more questions, fine, carry on all you want.
our opposition didn't even have the courage to show up, so I'll be quick. Yes, sir. Shout them out.
Some folks feel that Ohio is losing out in attracting more jobs because they don't have a right to work. And states around us do have right to work. Your comment, please.
My comment is I answered that question on Friday morning on Brian Thomas's show, so if you'd like to hear a more detailed answer, go on Brian Thomas, 55 KRC, his interview with Nathan Estruth, and you hear it. My answer was quite simple. We have to have it. One of the reasons Mary Taylor asked me to join her is to say we have a unique opportunity with Trump tax reform to create jobs and be the place businesses want to invest in Ohio. That only happens with right to work. It only happens with right to work. And by the way, what I would say to you is, as a business guy who's been an officer in a Fortune 20 company for over a decade, and as an LG who's only a heartbeat away with not much to do if we're in office, I will personally use the bully pulpit of the Lieutenant Governor's office to champion it in the state and make sure the business community showed up. Because Mary Taylor tried to champion it the last time and she turned around and the business community didn't show up. This time, Mary and I will do different. I'll help lead it as a business guy who knows to walk into a boardroom and what to say. Next question. Yes, sir.
I've got a question to both of you relative to your feelings about tariffs.
You either said terrorists or tariffs.
Tariffs.
So I'm supportive of what the president is attempting to do right now. I think that we've had a very uneven playing field for quite some time. And I come from a manufacturing background for large international companies. And I sat in a multitude of business meetings where we simply could not afford to produce products in the United States in the way that things were set up. It was an absolute difficulty. So I know people are concerned right now with what's going on with the tariffs and the trade war. Everybody's getting very nervous about that, but I think that we can trust in what the president is doing. I think he's promises made, promises kept, and I think that we'll be able to develop a solution that will be much more economically feasible than what we have currently.
The 10 minutes of questions is actually supposed to just be.
Okay, you said both.
That's
Nathan.
okay, I know.
Nathan threw the mic at me.
Yeah, I did. So on a gubernatorial basis, honestly, it matters not what the governor of Ohio thinks or not on tariffs because it is a federal issue at the end of the day. So honestly, I've been on the trail 6 weeks with Mary. I've never had that question asked of us directly, so I'm not sure how she'd answer it. What I'd say is, I'm in a wait-and-see mode to see actually what the president wants to do, because he's wily as a fox on some of this in terms of what he asks for and what he actually does. So I'd be careful right now until I know exactly what he's trying to do, but fundamentally what he's doing is standing up for U.S. industry and trying to say we have to approach this differently, and I do agree with that. We got lots of hands, so is that all right? We'll just kind of work our way back.
Mike Gibbons mentioned the chances of the healthcare system being tossed out to the 50 laboratory states to work on. What are your and Mary's ideas for healthcare for Ohio?
Thank you. So, very important on the job side. We also have to have an approach to the opioid addiction crisis. The U.S. Senate candidates talked about that. Mary Taylor has the most detailed plan on that on her website if you want to take a look. I'll jump to healthcare, but they are related, okay? So I think many of you know, but Mary Taylor speaks about this from very personal experience, right? She started talking about this last summer, but both of her sons became addicted to opioids off of the doctor's prescription as a result of some high school injuries. And so she has gone through it as a mom, And she understands what works and what doesn't, and she's connected with a lot of families that have, and she takes a very conservative approach, which is government is not going to be the solution here. But government has a role to play, which is as the state, we can use government to foster the innovation of the private sector and the faith-based nonprofit sector to address it. It's one of the reasons why Mary and I did our announcement when I stepped away from P&G on January 10th and stepped onto the stage to say, yes, I'll be your lieutenant governor at City Gospel Mission right here in Cincinnati. And she spent the hour before that touring their residential facility where my wife and I and our family have volunteered during basically the whole course of our marriage so that she could understand that and compare it to other things she's seen across the state. So she's very committed to government not being the solution, but basically enabling the private sector to do that and pulling government regulations back. On the healthcare side, she also has a detailed plan on healthcare. If you want to go to marytaylorforgovernor.com, fundamentally it centers back on reestablishing the patient-doctor relationship, using primary care docs as your gateway to prevention, wellness, and really your quarterback to the overall system. And before she met me, she had that out there. I happened to serve on the board of a healthcare company during my job at P&G that did exactly that. And we actually took that not only to folks who could pay for it, but to folks on Medicare.